Okay. Part 2. The Fellowship Gathering's third year. The ceremonies are tomorrow. Our student candidates, and just like last year, I was not informed that all of our students had arrived. Hersher had stormed into the dormitory while we Archdu candidates were eating with our retainers, and upon seeing her, Wilfried and Ignace had exchanged glances that seemed to say, "Crap! We forgot again!" In truth, it had slipped my mind as well. Dealing with the children of the former Veronica faction had naturally taken priority. "My sincerest apologies," Wilfried replied, rising to his feet at once. "We have our own circumstances, however, and—" He fell silent, unsure how to proceed without mentioning the purge. Hersher was looking at him with raised eyebrows, clearly suspicious, so I quickly stood up as well. "We sincerely apologize for having once again failed to communicate with you. Would you care to eat with us? There's so much I want to know about the year ahead, and we have some news that may interest you." Hersher scanned the plates on the table, then smiled. It seemed that the delicious meals on display had worked to assuage her frustration. "Rayarda, please prepare a seat for Professor Hersher." "I understood, milady." As she waited for her meal to be prepared, Hersher told us about Ehrenfest's ranking this year and what to expect in the upcoming ceremonies. One of Wilfried's retainers passed this information on to the students in the common room. "Professor Hersher, has Raymond or Ferdinand contacted you?" I asked. "Ferdinand sent me one letter which I received at the end of autumn. In it, he informed me that he would soon be leaving for Ahrensbach and asked me to look after you. Raymond has not yet come to my laboratory, so I have not heard from him." One of the Canadian professors were kept up to date on the results of the Archduke Conference, so she had already known that Ferdinand was engaged to Detlinde, but she had not expected that he would get so little time to prepare for his departure. Finding out about this in his letter had come as quite a surprise to her. It is ironic that Ferdinand, whom Lady Veronica despised so much, would end up being the one to realize her dream of connecting with Ahrensbach, Hersher said with a sigh. A smile played on my lips. Outside of these parents particularly close to Ferdinand, most nobles seemed to be celebrating the marriage with Ahrensbach. I was glad to know that Hersher wouldn't have been fooled by the fake enthusiasm that Ferdinand had shown, that she would have immediately seen that he didn't actually want to go. "Professor Hersher, Ferdinand gifted me his estate and said that I might turn it into a library. There are many magic tools that I want to make in preparation, and to that end I intend to join Raymond in your laboratory this year." "Oh yes, Lord Ferdinand was your guardian, wasn't he? Did he give you his research documents then, or did he take those with him?" "I would assume he left them behind in the estate? Because I doubt he would have taken such documents like that with him to Ahrensbach where someone might see them." Hersher was obviously more interested in the research documents than anything else, so I thought back to what Ferdinand had taken with him to Ahrensbach. As I recalled, he had been so pressed for time that he had packed only the essentials. He had also said that there was little need for him to bring his most important items right away, since he didn't expect he'd have a chance to use them. "I imagine they are still somewhere in Ehrenfest," I said. "Ferdinand is staying in a guest room in Ahrensbach at the moment, no? The plan is to send the rest of his belongings over when he is given proper chambers after his Starbind ceremony. You did not bring any of those documents with you, I presume?" The thought didn't occur to me. Only then did I realize that I hadn't prepared the documents necessary to lend to bend Hersher to my will. Last year, it had been as simple as packing the documents that Ferdinand picked out for me, but now that he was gone, I would need to do all that myself. He really was thorough, wasn't he? I wasn't anything near as capable. I hadn't even thought to inform Hersher that the students had all arrived in the dormitory. What would I do if I needed to ask for her to help this term? "Still, why are you Archduke candidates eating separately from the other students?" Hersher asked, looking around the dining hall. Wilfried and Charlotte were struggling to find an answer. We couldn't risk leaking information about the purge when we didn't know what the situation was in Ehrenfest. The risk of sensitive information getting out was too great. "We determined that it would be best for us to keep our distance this year," I explained. "That said, I am sure we'll start eating together again before long. What's going on in Ehrenfest?" "We shall tell you when it has been resolved," I said with a smile. Hersher eyed me intently for a moment, then seemed to grasp that I had no intention of answering any further questions. "I see. In that case, I look forward to you visiting my laboratory once everything is over. I imagine you will not have an easy time until then, but do take care of yourself, Lady Rosemine." Thanks to my second Jareve, I was feeling stronger by the day. I was no longer sickly enough to warrant anyone telling me to get some rest, or what have you. Hersher noticed my confusion and made a face clearly exasperated. "The air here on the dormitory has grown heavy once again. The feelings of unity and cooperation that developed over the past few years are gone. Perhaps that is because even the Saint of Ehrenfest is wearing such a troubled frown?" I pressed my hands against my cheeks. I wasn't frowning or looking the slightest bit forlorn. No, I was smiling. I was sure that I was. But as I tilted my head, Hersher placed her hands over mine and pressed against my face. I could feel the warmth seeping from her skin into mine. You are free to push yourself beyond your means, she said in a quiet voice, but do not lose sight of who you are on the process. Harsha then got up and exited the dormitory as quickly as she had come. I was at a loss for words. My head was full of questions that I didn't know the answer to. What did she mean, lose sight of who I am? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out at some point. I don't know. The day of the advancement ceremony and fellowship gathering had arrived. I got dressed, put on my cape and brooch, and then slid my rainbow hair stick behind my hairpin just as third bell grew near. It was time for us to leave for the auditorium. I got into my high beast and went down to the second floor where I met up with my male retainers, Roderick and Theodore. Brunhilde waited until my other retainers had gathered as well, and then turned to me. Lady Rosamund, we have decided that Lenore, Judith, and Theodore will serve as your guards. I as your attendant, and Roderick as your scholar. Will this do? Indeed, Brunhilde, that will do just fine. Considering everyone's status, that was about the only selection they could have made anyway. It really made me feel my lack of archnoble retainers. We continued down to the first floor to find Charlotte speaking with the first years. You will only not be able to return to the dormitory without your cape and brooch, she said. So make sure you do not forget them. Now, is everyone here? Oh, are we still missing those of the former Veronica faction? Marianne, Rudolph, can you check on them for me? Marianne and Rudolph passed me as I arrived at the bottom of the stairs, set on carrying out their order. The gathered children were all dressed in mostly black clothes with capes and brooches, and the girls were wearing hairpins as well. The first-year girls were wearing the hairpins we had given them, but many of the older students now had ornaments they had bought with themselves, so not everyone was matching like last year. I wasn't wearing my hairpin from last year either. I couldn't wear 3 hair ornaments at once, so I prioritized the 2 that mattered most. The rainbow face stone charm that Ferdinand had given me, and a fancy hairpin from Thule. I put away my high beast. I was only permitted to use it within the dormitory, and then made my way over to Wilfried. Is something up, Rosamund? I tilted my head to one side and ran my fingers along the rainbow face stones dangling from my hair stick. Ferdinand gave me this charm, but I think we should act as though you gave it to me. Make sure you play along when we're in public. Why? Otherwise, people will say that his present to me is better than the proposal face stone he gave to Lady Detlinde, and rumors will spread. Brunhilde told me as much. In my eyes, one ornament with rainbow face stones was no different from another. Plus, Ferdinand hadn't mentioned any potential issues when telling me to wear the charm, so I had assumed that everything would be fine. Now, everyone seemed to agree, however, and after quite the lecture from Brunhilde and Lazetta, I was starting to see why. It was like giving a diamond ring to one's partner, then giving another girl a necklace with 5 bigger diamonds of a higher quality. The jewelry was worn in different places, sure, but it didn't make it any more acceptable. Lady Detlinde will not be pleased to hear that Ferdinand gave me this hair stick. You understand that, yes? I guess? I'm not a girl, so I can't say I really follow. It's really very simple, one of Wilfred's attendants suddenly exclaimed, his head in his hands. Please try a little harder. Thank you. It's not that hard to figure out. Wilfred, you are so dense when it comes to romance. Come on, think. There was no denying that Wilfred and I were pretty romantically oblivious as far as couples went. It was difficult to say whether that was a good or bad thing. The easiest solution would be for me to go without the hair stick on occasions when Lady Detlinde might see it, I said, but given the state of the dormitory and the suspicions of the duchies, I cannot take that risk. Right, Uncle gave you that charm specifically because he expects you to be in enough danger to need it. And you were actually attacked by an Immerdink archnoble back then. Said archnoble had actually been aiming for Hartman, but that didn't change the fact that I had ended up being hit. And then there had been the terrorist attacks soon after. Nobody could guess what could happen moving forward. The more charms I had, the better. Our cover story is going to be that my guardians, Father, Ferdinand, the archducal couple, and you each gathered 1 stone, which Ferdinand then designed into this charm I explained. Brunhilde had said that this would also serve to protect Ferdinand's honor when Lady Detlinde's hairpins made everyone question his taste in fashion. I just do not want Ferdinand to be looked down on or Lady Detlinde to become outraged. Keep in mind that how Ferdinand is treated in Ahrensbach will change drastically if people think he is treating me better than his fiancée. Uncle always worries about the people around him, but never about himself, Wilfred said with a sigh. He then pulled up his sleeve to reveal 2 charms hanging from his wrist. One blocked physical attacks and the other mana attacks. Ferdinand had apparently given charms to Charlotte, Sylvester, and Florencia as well. All right, I'll say that we all prepared the face stones together. Then Uncle designed the ornament. All of a sudden, there came a tremendous crash from somewhere above us. Several thumping noises then followed like somebody was flailing around. Lenore, Natalie, Alexis. The guard knights whose names were called all rushed upstairs at once while the others formed a defensive line. The commotion stopped a moment later, and it wasn't long before Lorenz appeared with a first-year boy wrapped in bands of light. "Lorenz, what was all that noise?" I asked. As we expected, one of the students was going to use the fellowship gatherings to warn his family about the purge. He intended to ask someone from another duchy to deliver this correspondence for him, Lorenz then held out a sheet of paper on which was written a message steeped in despair. "Everyone who has given their name to Lady Georgine or committed crimes is going to be detained and perished. Punished. You haven't done anything wrong, though, right? Mother? Father? We'll meet again, won't we?" The student had so much love for his family, I could feel it in every word he had written, and the thought alone made my heart ache so much that I wanted to cry. Part of me wanted to ease his worries and send him home to his parents, but I was on the side of those doing the purge. There was nothing I could say or do, so I simply gritted my teeth. "Lorenz, what do you intend to do with this boy?" I asked. He gave a thin smile. "We have decided that no students from the former Veronica faction will attend the advancement ceremony and fellowship gatherings. Matthias has said that you informed Professor Herscher that an infectious sickness has swept through the dormitory and that we will need several days to recover." "Lorenz, that is—" I intended to say not what I asked, but Wilfred grabbed me by the arm and pulled me away before the words could pass my lips. "We agreed to leave the convincing to them, Rosemine," he said. "We can't let Father and everyone else know that one of the students had tried to leak information to the suspects and to other duchies, especially when we just gave them an opportunity to escape punishment. If you care about them, walk away." "Wilfred, we predicted that at least one person would try something like this, didn't we? And you know what we said we would do in that case," he continued, looking between the tied-up child and me. "We had two choices. Punish everyone by association, as per tradition, or pretend that we hadn't seen anything. Your compassion spared me before I committed a crime out of love for my family. I'm going to offer this student the same opportunity that you gave me, but only this once. I wish to save as many of the children as possible, so I will also look the other way, Lorenz. Those of the former Veronica faction are in your hands. We're off then. Take care to watch your expressions and posture, everyone. We can't let those of the other duchies know what's happening." Wilfred ordered for the main door to be opened, then we all started filing out into the hallway. We were much smaller in number now that the children of the former Veronica faction were staying behind. It wasn't even third bell, yet I was already exhausted. "Are you well, Sister?" Charlotte asked. "I understand the intense love for one's family all too well, so it pains me to think what that boy is going through. His suffering may be hard to bear, but the alternative would see him forfeit his life entirely." Charlotte reached out to me, and we exited the dormitory hand in hand. I could feel the warmth of her touch, and she gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. The number above our dormitory's door was now an 8, and we were closer to the auditorium than before. Our rise through the ranks also meant that our seats for the ceremony were nearer to the front. I could hear muttering as we took our places in the auditorium, but I was too preoccupied with the boy in the dormitory and what would happen if we failed to win over those of the former Veronica faction to pay it any mind. I merely did my best to keep a noble smile plastered on my face while some higher-ups gave basically the same speech as last year. I was still dazed even when the advancement ceremony came to an end and everyone started dividing themselves into lay noble, men noble, and archnoble groups for the fellowship gatherings. We Archduke candidates left the auditorium and made our way to the small hall with our retainers. "Lord Wilfred, Lady Rosamine, and Lady Charlotte from Ehrenfest the Eighth have arrived," came an announcement as we entered. I noticed that Hildebrand was seated at the far end of the room. Evidently, he was once again having to oversee the Royal Academy as a member of the royal family. I smiled at him and he smiled back. I had been told not to interact with royalty, but surely that much was okay. I mean, you're supposed to be smiling anyway, so whatever. Once everyone was gathered, it was time for the usual greetings. The students of each duchy would first speak with Hildebrand at the front, then slowly work their way through all the duchies, ranked above their own. Those of a lower rank would come to them. Klassenburg, then Dunkelfelger, then Drawankel. The first 7 duchies offered their greetings, and then it was our turn. Once again, Dragana, the goddess of time, has woven our threads together and blessed us with a meeting. Wilfred spoke to Hildebrand as our representative. I was standing behind him and Charlotte, and I could tell that they were both particularly tense, mainly because they had been told to avoid getting involved with the royal family. Hildebrand, in contrast, seemed to be excited beyond words. His purple eyes were wrinkled in a smile that made me surprisingly envious. If only I could be so happy. I wasn't sure why I was feeling this way. Seeing someone else smile hadn't affected me like this last year. I guess because of the whole Ferdinand issue and the purge happening, I guess. "Rosamund, I look forward to us spending more time together in the library this year," Hildebrand intoned. "I am honored. Naturally, I couldn't say that I was going to be keeping my distance from him to avoid being scolded again, or that I planned to hole up in Herscher's lab instead. That was why I had set up for an innocuous reply delivered with a smile. After greeting the prince, Wilfred, Charlotte, and I made our way to the next table. Now we need to speak with Klassenburg. It appeared that the duchy didn't have any Archduke candidates this year, so Wilfrid exchanged greetings with an Archnoble representative whom I didn't recognize. Wait. Oh, yeah, Klassenberg. For some reason, I was confusing Klassenberg with Dunkelfelder. Whoopsie. The Archnoble apologized for the trouble their merchant had caused and said, I hope that our relationship may continue to be long and fruitful. Unfortunately for him, no matter what he says, we don't have the space to do more business with Klassenberg. There was no helping the fact that the lower city was completely packed. Really, we expected that Arensbach would try to use the marriage between our two duchies to secure business slots. That said, this purge is going to give Ehrenfest much less mana to work with, so we won't be able to help Groschel to use Entwickeln and become a trading city. I wonder what we'll do about that. Lord Lestalot, Lady Hannelore, once again, Dragana the Gods of Time has woven our threads together and blessed us with a meeting. Wilfrid repeated the usual greeting when we arrived at Dunkelfelder's table. Hannelore was there, and the smile she gave when she saw me worked to improve my mood a little. I'm glad to see that you are well, Lady Hannelore, I said, and you, Lady Rosamine. I just heard from Professor Roffin that an illness has kept so many Ehrenfest students from attending today. She had clearly expected me to be among them. Charlotte smoothly stepped forward with a smile. This occurred after my sister was bedridden. There is no need to worry about her health. That aside, when shall we deliver your hairpin? Rosamine will not need to return to Ehrenfest for the dedication ritual this year, so we could even give it to you during socializing season. I applauded Charlotte on the inside, impressed that she had changed the topic so masterfully. Then turned my attention to Lestat, who had ordered the hairpin in the first place. The design is based on flowers native to your duchy, correct? The hairpin craftsperson was taken aback by the fine artistic sense of the designer. The final design was wonderfully put together. Huh, it certainly was. I see that even a backwater duchy such as Ehrenfest has some vestige of taste. Lestat said, his lips curving into a grin as though he had thought my praise had been for him. No way. Or rather, no way. I decided to ask who had come up with the design. My brother, Hannelore said. He is a natural-born artist, having been skilled in matters like this since he was young. That is quite a surprise. I never would have imagined that the shouty guy who had led a platoon of duchies to steal Schwartz and Weiss from me had the spirit of an artist. That rainbow-faced ornament of yours is not bad either, Lestat said. From whence did it come? My guardians worked to gather the stones, Lord Ferdinand designed it, and then Wilfrid gave it to me. Lord Ferdinand is very talented, is he not? Turn around, I wish to examine it more closely. I was about to oblige Lestat, but Hannelore hastily tugged on his cape. Brother, no matter how wondrous the hair ornament may be, it is rude to have Lady Rosamund put herself on display like that. I stopped in my tracks, having already begun to turn around, then slowly raised back to my original posture. Whew, that was close. I almost did something unladylike. My sincerest apologies, Lady Rosamund, Hannelore continued. In any case, once socializing season arrives, you may deliver the hairpin to us, and we can exchange books. You have more new books this year, yes? I am looking forward to reading them ever so much. Indeed, have you finished the book on our duchy's history? Lestat asked me. It was one thing to discuss such matters with a fellow bookworm like Hannelore, but I hadn't expected that he would express an interest as well. There was a distinct sparkle in his red eyes. Pleased about this and his unexpected development, I gave a firm nod. Dunkelfelder has so much history that it was impossible to cover it all in a single Ehrenfest book. Instead, we intend to publish it across several volumes. The first is ready to be delivered during this year's book exchange, and if everything is satisfactory, then it should be available to purchase following the next Archduke conference. I see. I shall look forward to our tea party then. Wait, what? Lestat intends to join the tea party too? I was so used to him looking down on Ehrenfest that I couldn't even imagine him agreeing to sit with us. Had something happened to cause this change in him? As we moved on to Great Jawanko, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been transported into a bizarre new world. Once again, I decided to leave the speaking to Wilfrid since he was good friends with Ortwin. Many of our students are having to miss classes due to illness, he said, so I don't think we'll pass all of our classes on the first day this year. I see. That is unfortunate indeed. Our competition won't be affected, though, I trust. Of course not. They renewed their promise as rivals, then the conversation turned to my hair stick. I gave the same explanation that I had given to Dunkelfelder. We greeted Gillessenmeyer and Hoschlitz next, then it was time for us to see Arensbach. Oh boy, here we go. Lady Detlinde, Wilfrid said. Once again, Dragana, the goddess of time, has woven our threads together and blessed us with a meeting. Detlinde appeared to be in an exceptionally good mood. Lord Ferdinand is always wearing the kind of smile, she remarked. He is also dedicating himself to his administrative work so that I can be here at the Royal Academy. Yep, that's a fake smile. It all sounded harmless enough, but Linde's report made me worried all of a sudden. I got the feeling that Ferdinand was neglecting food and sleep, instead of relying on potions to get him through his work. I decided that I would write to him via Raymond when classes started. During the Feast of Beginnings, Lord Ferdinand played the harpsichord for all the gathered nobles. Linde continued. It was a new song, one ever overflowing with love and passion that he made just for me. I plan to have it played during tea parties this year. I'm glad to hear they went with my suggestion, but a love song? Ferdinand making a love song? I certainly hadn't expected him to do something as so cliché. Perhaps there had been no need for me to teach him a method for making allies? Wilfred came back to his senses, hearing Linde go on and on about Ferdinand being so kind and wonderful had put him in a stupor, then discreetly poked my shoulder. Rosamine, is she actually talking about Uncle? It sounds like someone else entirely, but it must be him. I imagine he's really pushing himself. Linde went on to declare that she was holding another tea party for cousins this year, and that I was actually invited this time. The plan was for us to use the opportunity to deliver her hairpins and listen to Ferdinand's new song. I was looking forward to hearing what he had come up with. We greeted the 7th Franking Duchy, and then returned to our seats in time for the other duchies to start greeting us. The Archduke candidate for Immerdink made a point of apologizing for the actions of the Archnoble during last year's interduchy tournament. In truth, I wasn't really bothered about the attack. It had given us an additional reason to refuse the sovereignty's requests, and for me to wear my rainbow charm. Immerdink had no doubt suffered a great deal more than we had, though I had hoped this hadn't been the reason they had gone down in the rankings. I accepted the apology with a smile, hoping not to earn any more ire from Immerdink in the future. Well, I mean, they lost some students, literally during that attack. Some of the students died. Here's hoping that not too many of them did. Then again, we hadn't even known anybody. We hadn't even heard of Immerdink before until then. So, yeah. The fellowship gathering concluded, and we started making our way to the dormitory. My thoughts were dominated by the children of the former Veronica faction. I wanted to let them see their families, but that was out of the question. The purge had to happen. At most, I could only try to minimize the damage. But how? Lady Rosamine. Oh, Raymond. He had suddenly appeared from around a corner, having no doubt come from Herscher's laboratory in the specialty building. His light violet cape fluttered behind him as he made his way over, but he was stopped in his tracks when my apprentice guard knights appeared to assume defensive positions. It was to be expected, considering that he was an Arensbach noble. Raymond took a step back, his eyes wide, and then spoke to me from a distance. Lady Rosamine, I have a message from Lord Ferdinand. Would you like to hear it? Did something happen? Not quite. I want to show him this. He pulled out what appeared to be a slightly smaller version of a recording magic tool, and he recorded a message on it. Ferdinand had apparently turned it away, maintaining that it could be made even smaller, but not before leaving a few words for me. Play it. Play it now, I said, leaning forward. I want to hear it. Raymond nodded and touched the face stone. Rosamine, it is I, an unmistakable voice from the magic tool. I was hit with a wave of nostalgia, even though it really hadn't been that long since its departure for Arensbach. But as the message continued, each such pleasant feelings quickly dissipated. I hope you have not been neglecting your studies now that I'm gone. Crap, I really have been. Rose, remember your vow to come first in class once again, the message continued. Allow your or the duchy's grades to slip, and I will show no mercy. What's he gonna do? Was he gonna pinch her cheeks? I think she would actually welcome that, considering he would be right in front of her, so, yeah. I clapped my hands on my cheeks. Knew it. In shock, looking entirely like the screamer. The painting the scream. But it was then that the voice coming from the magic tool softened. Remember, however, that your task is not to secure better grades than last year. I'm simply saying that you should not let them fall. That should not be difficult, no? The same as last year. Right. I clench my fist. Somehow that makes me feel so much more doable. I do not believe it possible for you to raise your grades any higher, Charlotte muttered from behind me. Shh, don't tell her, Charlotte. She's finally motivated. Ah, hold on. It really is impossible for me to do any better. He tricked me, didn't he? Really? She got 100% on all her classes? If so, then awesome. Wilfred, Charlotte, the same goes for the two of you. I anticipate that you shall attain results befitting the charms that I gave you. Come the introductory tournament, I expect to hear that Ehrenfest students once again passed all their classes on the first day. Anything less will not be tolerated. No way. The demand was especially hard on Charlotte, who hadn't managed it last year, as she began to tremble beneath the immense pressure. I reached out to console her, only for Ferdinand to suddenly call out to me. Yes, Rosamine. I froze. His voice sounded kind. uncomfortably so. It was the same warm tone that he often adopted right before making an unreasonable demand. I turned my eyes from Charlotte to the magic tool still in Raymond's hand. If your grades go down at all, then I intend to consult Op Ehrenfest about taking back the library I gave you. One who cannot manage herself can hardly be expected to manage so many books. No! I cried, snatching the magic tool from Raymond. Anything but that! Naturally, I was unable to negotiate with a recording. Not having someone around to set me regular tasks, combined with the mental anguish of the purge and stuff, meant that I had been neglecting my studies. I wasn't even reading books. Still, thinking about my library was the only thing keeping my head above water. Without it, I would sink into the depths of misery and die. I wasn't exaggerating either. I would genuinely die. Well, that's the end of the message, Raymond said, retrieving the tool. Not even my best attempts to improve the magic tool have been enough for Lord Ferdinand. So I understand what you must be going through. Let us all work our very hardest. His eyes flitted between me and the recorder in his hand. Then he beat a hasty retreat. What are we going to do, Rosamund? Wilfrid asked. Now that I think about it, I haven't studied at all since coming to the Royal Academy. Yes, sister, Charlotte added. Sylvester had explicitly told us to leave matters of the purge to him. We were all so focused on it that we had forgotten about the Better Grades Committee entirely. This was bad. Ferdinand would no doubt give us the most scathing lecture the moment we reunited at the introductory tournament. At this rate, he's going to have Sylvester take away my library. We can't waste any more time worrying. We must do all that we can to protect my library, I declared, balling my fist hand into a resolved fist. Oh, wait, Rosamund, and Wilfrid said his face, but I'm getting a really bad feeling about this. Fear not, Wilfrid. I will obliterate that bad feeling along with everything else that tries to get in my way. No, that doesn't help. We're going to experience that nightmare all over again. I gave Wilfrid a reassuring smile and placed a hand on his shoulder. Unlike before, we've got an entire year of studying under our belts already. At most, we'll only need to go over what we've already learned. You have a point. We might be fighting with the library at stake again, but the similarities end there. He clapped his hands together, nodded to himself, and then added that this was also an order from Uncle, who knew how to administer the medicine without making it a deadly poison. Huh? Somebody want to tell me what that is, unless I find out later? I wasn't sure what he was referring to, but I decided that now wasn't the time to ask. First of all, we need to ensure that everyone passes on the first day, I said. That alone should not be any trouble. Indeed, Laysletta said, smiling brightly and providing her support. The students have all spent an entire year studying their hardest. If everyone works together, we should not experience any issues. From there, Brunhilde explained why Ferdinand was being so unreasonable. If our duchy were to fall in rank, then everyone would mock us and say that our rise was only temporary after all. Lord Ferdinand will already be struggling in Arensbach, having moved from a middle duchy to a greater duchy. If word spreads that his home duchy's rank has fallen before his Starnbein ceremony, then he will receive much hostility as Lady Letizia's mentor. Hearing that made me even more resolved. We would not allow our grades to drop this year, no matter what. Maintaining our current position is important for a variety of reasons, I said. Let it be done, then. There is still enough time. Right, let us hurry back and get to studying, Wilfrid exclaimed. We Archduke candidates briskly made our way back to the dormitory with our retainers in tow. Upon our arrival, Wilfrid threw open the door marked with an 8 and rushed into the common room. We have to pass tomorrow's exam on our first go, he declared. Everyone fetch your study materials and gather back here. I got into my high beast, Lenore Roderick, and struck the children of the former Veronica faction to bring their study materials and gather in the common room as well. Lenore hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, understood. Her expression was noticeably harder than before. I went upstairs to Leslie, then rushed into my room as Judith and Feline opened the door for me. Riarda, we're going to be studying in the common room, I said. Prepare everything we will need. At once, milady, though I must say, this is quite sudden, is it not? Ferdinand is extorting me, I said, explaining everything that had happened with Raymond and the voice recording magic tool. He'll take away my library if our duchy's grades average goes down at all. Don't you think that's cruel, threatening to take something away so soon after he gave it to me? Lord Ferdinand is attempting to guide you even now when he's no longer in Ehrenfest. I will consider this his way of showing his concern for you. Well, I don't want that kind of concern. I was doing my best to look outraged, but Riarda merely laughed and said that the smile on my face was still clear to see. We are talking about Lord Ferdinand, she said. There may be punishments for failure, but there will certainly be rewards for success as well. Study well, milady. In that case, I'll raise our grades so high that even Ferdinand won't believe it. Then I'll get him to make all the magic tools I need for my library. I will secure what I already have, then wrest away even more from his grubby little hands. After receiving my study materials, I used my panda bus to get back to the common room, then put it away and got my retainers to prepare a spot for those of us studying for the Archduke candidate course. Charlotte was sitting with the other second years, so it was just Wilfrid and me for now. Let us study here, I said. We two are the only Ehrenfest students during the Archduke candidate course this year. Right. I'm going to read these first, so start studying without me, Wilfred replied, unenthusiastically staring down at the boards in his hands. Despite feeling a little confused, I called out to all those gathered, please take your seats based on last year's groups. First years, take that table over there. As everyone was following their instructions, the children of the former Veronica faction appeared with their study materials. They stood at the entrance and gazed around the room looking conflicted. You're late, I called. Please take your seats. We all need to pass our exams the first time around, Wilfred added. We cannot allow Ehrenfest's grades to fall. Here we go. One of the kids glared at us, anger flaring in his eyes. How do you expect us to focus on studying when your father might be killing our families as we speak? The atmosphere in the room turned cold. Wilfred and I had been holding our heads high just a moment ago, trying to be enthusiastic, but now our eyes were somberly downcast. An instant later, Lenore stepped forward with her staff in hand. The child was wriggling on the ground before I knew it, entangled in bands of light. What? Lenore, what are you doing? This boy does not seem to understand the position he is in, my lady. Just how poor of a job has Matthias and Lorenz done in convincing them? She mused, her violet eyes now a mixed-up color. I had never seen her like this before. Oh, mixed-up color, that means her mana is kind of going out of control. Like how Rosemine's does. Matthias looked at me with pleading eyes, completely taken aback. Lady Rosemine said that she would save those who are innocent. Before I could even attempt a response, Lenore intervened again. Indeed, you are correct, Matthias. Lady Rosemine has said asked the Ob to save those who have committed no crimes. Furthermore, she has prepared a place in the orphanage for those she has been told will not be considered nobles for the purpose of the purge. Lenore had a smile on her lips, but it was scarily intense, as was to be expected of someone so emotional that her eyes had changed colors. Members of the former Veronica faction attempted to kidnap Lady Rosemond before her baptism, she continued. They even managed to poison her, which was the reason for her 2-year slumber. And there has been yet another assassination attempt in recent memory. After assaulting the Archducal family time and time again, it is only logical that your families must be punished. Guilt by association, the customary approach in situations such as this, would have required even those of you who are innocent to die alongside them. But Lady Rosemine fought to save you. She agonized over what she could do, and she feels your pain as though it were her own. Lenore is usually so quiet and unassertive that it completely slipped my mind, but she's totally a Liesgang noble too. Just as there were children of the former Veronica faction here in the dormitory, there were Liesgang nobles too. Many of the Liesgang faction were archnobles, and as they tended to serve the Archducal family, they were obeying our orders and working to save the lives of the others. On the inside, however, it seemed that they were displeased about our break from tradition. The blood drained from my face. I had been so busy empathizing with the children of the former Veronica faction that I hadn't stopped to consider how my own retainers were feeling. I'm a terrible lady. I don't deserve them. Those of you who are unsatisfied with being spared, I will readily send you back to Ehrenfest, where you can receive the punishment that should have been forced upon you in the first place. She then took out a sheet of paper that said, uncompliant, and affixed it to the restrained student. All those watching couldn't help but swallow. Lenore was usually so calm and composed, so seeing her this openly aggressive had caught everyone off guard. Brunhilde alone seemed unaffected, and she stepped forward in one smooth motion. You have made a mistake, Lenore. Brunhilde, do not attempt to stop me. I can no longer tolerate watching these ungrateful pests bite the hands of those who have struggled and put so much at risk to save them. I merely wish to point out that the bands of light you are using will not work with the teleportation circle. You must use binding string on him instead. Nora approached and pulled out some string that was thicker than usual. She pulled it taut with both hands and stared down at the restrained boy with her usual diligent expression. We have no need for someone who intends to disturb Lady Rosemond when her mood is finally improving and she's working to reunite the dormitory. As an attendant, it is my duty to eliminate those who would put my lady's mental health at risk. I didn't ask for this level of service. I'm healthy in mind and body. You are exactly right, Leslie. Let us waste no time eliminating them, Brunhilde said. Even while struggling with the challenge of running the duchy, those of our Archducal family have been compassionate enough to fight for the children of so many treasonous adults. I can understand saving those who would put Ehrenfest above all else, but Liesgang has no food for those who cannot understand this great kindness afforded to them. A kindness that they would not have received anywhere else in Jurgensmith. I forgot that Brunhilde is a Liesgang too. This is bad. My retainers are all going berserk. Somebody stop them. My eyes darted around the room seeking help. Hartman and Cornelius would normally intervene at a time like this, but they were both absent. I went to stand, but Wilfred's and Charlotte's retainers rose first. I couldn't believe my luck, but then I saw that they too were wielding their staffs. It was children of the former Veronica faction who took Lord Wilfred to the Ivory Tower, who tarnished his reputation with a stain that will never fade, even with how tirelessly he had been working to cover it. said Alexis, one of Wilfried's apprentice guard knights. He looked over the students and several gazed down at their feet. Presumably they were the ones who had been involved. Natalie was the next to speak. Lady Charlotte was kidnapped by a member of the former Veronica faction on the very day of her baptism, and she has always blamed herself that Lady Rosamund was poisoned while trying to rescue her. Ever since then, she has striven beyond her limits to serve in Lady Rosamund's place as much as she possibly can. All eyes fell on Charlotte as it became clear that we Archduke candidates had all suffered due to the former Veronica faction. If any of you are still displeased with our Archduke candidates' efforts and do not intend to put in the work required to pass all your exams on the first day, then you may be deemed guilty by association, Ignaz said, his eyes harsh. Can you not see the special treatment you are receiving? Only the Archducal family wishes to save you. The rest of us would rather stick with tradition. The children all weakly averted their gazes. Then the restrained first year finally spoke up. It's not that I'm grateful for the Archducal family's consideration. It's just I wish they could extend that consideration to our parents as well. Being separated from one's family was agonizing beyond words. My heart bled for the children for having to endure this pain, and I wanted to do everything in my power to put their minds at ease. But at the same time... Charlotte stood up, her indigo eyes scrutinizing the entire room. That request is fundamentally misplaced and serves only to inconvenience us. Your families have committed crimes, and they will receive the appropriate punishment. Those who are innocent have nothing to fear. We pitied the children who would be deemed guilty only by association, and extended our hands to them, but we will show no mercy to any wrongdoers. The path that you choose now is entirely in your own hands. And Charlotte's so cool, it feels like she's the one protecting me here. As the older sister, I needed to be the one stepping forward and protecting Wilfried and Charlotte, but instead the reverse was happening. I can't just wait around and let them do everything. I stood up and Lenore noticed and reached out to me in concern, but I pushed away her hand and gave her a reassuring smile before facing the children of the former Veronica faction. I may not be able to save your families, but I can save your futures. Those of you who lose your loved ones will in turn lose their support, meaning that you will need to survive on your own merits. Good grades will serve as an essential role in your search for another guardian. Ferdinand made this clear to me when I was first being raised in the temple. Ferdinand had talked incessantly about the importance of me educating myself and adopting noble mannerisms of all that so that I could secure as ideal of an environment as possible. It was thanks to his harsh teachings that during the incident with Count Bindewald, I had been adopted by the Archduke himself and not left to die as a commoner. Furthermore, think carefully about what will happen if your families are proven innocent or otherwise only lightly punished, I continued. How will you face them knowing that you were responsible for bringing down your duchy status? Will you tell them that you could not believe they were innocent? A light punishment may still affect your house's standing and make your life more difficult, but even then your grades will play a necessary role when you are trying to acquire a job and support your family. Matthias's expression hardened as the other kids anxiously exchanged glances. Lady Rosamund, I understand that Ehrenfest's grades are important, but I cannot support any children of the former Veronica faction leaving the dormitory. Ensuring that we all study is important, but we fear that sensitive information may be leaked. That won't be a problem, Wilfried interjected. He held up a hand and waved from side to side. I just received an update from Ehrenfest. The purge is almost complete. Details on the actual punishments will come later, but by the test tomorrow, it won't matter who leaks what. Everyone stared at the board in shock. Things had progressed faster than any of us had expected. Sylvester and the others had evidently chosen to prioritize speed above all else. We are beyond the point of no return, I said. You may now choose, will you begin studying and secure passing marks tomorrow? Or will you be sent back to Ehrenfest restrained like this student here? The decision is yours, and we will respect whatever you choose. There was nothing more to be said, so I returned to my seat. We truly were running out of time if we wanted to secure the grades that Ferdinand sought. Brunhilde, Lazletta, focus on your studies, I said. You are both aiming to finally become honor students this year, correct? Indeed, this year is a prime opportunity for us. The archducal retainers turned on their heels and threw themselves into their studies, at which point Matthias and Lorenz did the same. The other students gradually began to follow suit, and those of the former Veronica faction were no exception, although they did give us the room a cautious glance before doing so. Please undo my bindings. I want to study too, cried the boy whom Lenore had restrained. He had been left alone by the door and started flailing about like a desperate fish on a chopping block. Did you not wish to return to your family in Ehrenfest? Lenore asked. My family is innocent, so they won't have been punished. I believe in them. Lenore undid the boy's bindings, seemingly content with that answer, and watched as he ran to join the first-year table with his study materials in hand. Okay, that was tense. That was tense. The new librarian. Every single Ehrenfest student attended our classes the next day, and before we knew it, all the first years passed. Theodore gleefully reported this achievement, overjoyed to have passed his first year ever class. We shared in his excitement while we all ate lunch together. Brunhilde had informed me that the 5th years had passed with ease, and we 3rd years have of course done the same. That said, Theodore, we 3rd years not only passed, but we also did so with perfect marks. Yay! Even despite not studying when you guys got there, y'all still did it. Well, then again, y'all were studying the Archduke Canada course, while you guys were with Ferdinand, dealing with the whole Ferdinand stuff, so yeah, of course. I couldn't suppress a chuckle. As 3rd years, we had exams for both our shared classes and our specialty courses. Today we had done the exams for our shared classes, which required us to recall the names of all the gods. Naturally, this was a simple task for those of us who had been raised with karate and picture books. It was so easy, in fact, that it had actually been a little underwhelming. If your exam was that straightforward, then even I would have gotten a perfect score, Theodore muttered. I wish I would have 3rd year in already. I turned my attention to his sister. Judith, the 4th years have written lessons this afternoon, correct? Correct, and we're all going to pass, she replied with a confident grin. We didn't spend the past year studying for nothing. Theodore joked that she would need to be careful about tripping over her own feet and somehow failing, and it was then that an ordinance flew in. Lady Rosemine, this is Solange. The Sovereignty has sent a new librarian and asked that she be registered with Schwartz and Weiss. When will you have the time to come by? The message repeated twice more, and the joy in her voice was unmistakable. She had waited years for another librarian to be sent from the Sovereignty, and now she wouldn't need to spend the majority of the year all alone. Nor would she have to do all the work by herself. I gazed up at Riarda, who was serving me, and she nodded with a smile. The registration should not take long. We may head there after eating. The librarian will certainly struggle to carry out her duties without having Schwartz and Weiss registered to her. I must stress, however, that there will not be any time for you to read, milady. Not even a little? I asked, desperate. It hadn't taken very long at all to register Hildebrand and Hannelore, so I couldn't see why we wouldn't have time. Riarda sighed. I will shut your books the very instant the library signals it is time to leave, whether you like it or not. Woohoo! Library time! Library time! I told Solange I would be going to the library after lunch and asked my retainers to prepare. Theodore smiled. This is exciting. I've never been to the Royal Academy's library before. As you have not been registered, I'm afraid that you cannot accompany us today, I said. I understand the joys of one's first trip to the library painfully well, but he would simply have to wait. Theodore slumped over, clearly disappointed. So out of all your retainers, I'm the only one that has to stay behind. I will make arrangements for you and the other New Year students to be registered. Please be patient until then, I said, trying to console him both as his lady and an older student. In truth, however, I was struggling not to break into a smile. Because, his pouty expression makes him look just like Judith whenever she's all, but I'm Guard Knight too. They really are siblings. There was no denying that the similarity was adorable, but I elected to stifle my laughter, pointing it out now that it would make Theodore feel even worse. But then Judith tipped me over the edge. Pouting like that in front of your lady is embarrassing, she said, wagging a finger at him and putting on a big sister face despite the fact that she always pouted as well. Unable to contain it any longer, I suddenly burst into laughter. Then all my retainers all did the same. What's with everyone, she asked. What's going on? We couldn't stop laughing. They were even similar in how they looked around and us all lost for words. It took Lenora, who was holding a hand over her mouth, to maintain some semblance of elegance to clarify. Theodore's pouting expression looks identical to your own when you wail about not receiving work as a guard knight, Lenore. Or Judith, sorry. We are not identical, Lenore, they both shouted at the exact same time, which only served to make us laugh even harder. And as we started toward the library, leaving behind Theodore, who was still pouting about us all having laughed at him, Lady spoke cautiously as we trudged down the hallway. Lady Rosemine, does this new librarian mean that you will no longer be Schwartz and Weiss's master? I imagine so. Schwartz and Weiss are the library's magic tools, and their master was once an arch-noble librarian, so it makes sense that I would return them now. I had been providing the two shoe mills with Blana both to make my time in the library more comfortable and to assist with its management, but it wasn't like I was invested in being their master. It was best for them to go to the new arch-noble librarian whom Solange had so fervently hoped for while running the library by her lonesome. Even knowing that this is how things must be, I cannot help but feel it is a shame, Lazletta said, resting a hand on her cheek and letting out a truly disappointed sigh. It was a rare sight. She seldom expressed her feelings so openly. Their new master will need to prepare new clothes for them, I presume. I went out of my way to fashion some new outfits for them to wear, but it seems we will not have an opportunity to use them. Because we had put our all into the embroidery on the vest and apron, we could swap out any other parts of the shoe mill's clothes with ease. Lazletta had apparently made a new dress and pair of pants for them. You truly do love shoe mills, don't you, Feline and Judevat said in perfect unison before heaving emotional sighs. Laisletta blushed a little embarrassed. I do, but I did this to market Ehrenfest's new dyeing method. Well, at the very least, it will take some time for the new clothes to be prepared after the exchange. It took us an entire year, even with Ferdinand assisting us. If we first consult Professor Solange and this new librarian, I'm sure they will allow us to provide Schwartz and Weiss with new outfits for the year. It was possible that the Sovereignty could prepare new clothes faster than we could in Ehrenfest, but even then, I couldn't imagine that they would be finished prior to Laisletta's graduation. It certainly will prove a challenge trying to supply Schwartz and Weiss of mana while at the same time dyeing the cloth and thread for their embroidery. Lady Rosemine, thank you ever so much for taking the time to come to the library on your very busy first day. Solange greeted me from outside the reading room, having been waiting with Schwartz and Weiss. We exchanged the usual lengthy noble greetings, then began walking to the office. Only now that I was here in the library did I really feel that I was back at the Royal Academy. It is good that a new librarian has been sent from the Sovereignty, but she will not be able to do her work if she cannot touch Schwartz and Weiss, Solange explained. As she is an archnoble, I thought it best that we transition ownership to her as soon as possible. It seemed that she felt deeply troubled about relying on a student for their mana when they needed it for their classes. She also regretted that my ownership of the two shoe mills had forced me into a dinner game against Dunkelfelger that I would rather have avoided. Furthermore, you are taking both the Scholar and Archduke Character courses starting this year, no? Solange continued. Taking two courses at once will require a great deal of mana, so I'm glad the librarian arrived in time for this year. Her blue eyes wrinkled into a caring smile, and the realization that she had genuinely been worried for me made a warmth spread through my chest. I too am glad that you finally have somebody to work with, Professor Solange, after spending so long working in the library alone. Oh yes, even just having someone to speak with cannot be compared to working alone. This new librarian is a bookworm like you, Lady Rosamond, so I'm sure you will become fast friends. I am looking forward to meeting her. Her being a woman is also convenient, so she wouldn't take issue with the tools calling her milady. We continued towards Solange's office. I was excited to see what kind of person this bookworm librarian was, but when we stepped inside, she was far from the only one waiting for me. Professor Solange, isn't there only one new librarian? I asked. Indeed, but as this is the handover of a royal heirloom, it was decided that royalty should also be present. You were an exception, Lady Rosamond, as you registered your mana without even touching them. I averted my eyes, aware that it was exceptionally bizarre to become the owner of two magic tools by praying to the gods out of excitement and popping out a blessing after registering at a library. Even I started to blink in surprise when I thought back on the things I had done. Anyway, royals must have it rough if they're obliged to attend even a simple registration. Or actually, is this kind of thing why there always needs to be a member of the royal family in the Royal Academy? Yep. Rosemine. Lady Rosemine, it has been some time. Our arrival clearly hadn't gone unnoticed. The royal family's retainers moved to the walls to make space, and to my surprise, Hildebrand wasn't my only unexpected guest. Eglantine was with him as well. I widened my eyes, not having expected to see her. Lady Eglantine, why are you here at the Royal Academy? I asked. Surprised, I see? In truth, I have been tasked with serving as the professor of the Archduke Candidate course. We will be seeing a lot more of each other from now on. The professor who had been teaching the Archduke Candidate course before was a fairly old member of a branch of the royal family, and had told the king that they wished to retire soon. Eglantine had then been selected as a replacement. A noblewoman marrying a prince and then becoming an academy professor, True love stories are stranger than fiction. I certainly hadn't considered that I might see Eglantine again in the Royal Academy, let alone as one of my professors. It was a surprise, but also a welcome one, as the last thing I wanted wasn't another professor like Fraulein bothering me. Lady Rosemine, allow me to introduce you, Eglantine said, then indicated the 40-something-year-old next to her. This is Hortensia, the Royal Academy's new archnoble librarian. Okay, so that's Eglantine and that's the librarian, Hortensia, okay? Hortensia had a distinctive light blue hair, and she exuded a kindness similar to Eglantine. Judging by her age, she was likely a scholar just returning to work after raising her children. It was good to know that she would probably mesh well with Solange. I should point out that I could have done this on my own, Hildebrand informed me. Lady Eglantine asked me if she could attend as well. I do not need her help or anything. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind, but I recalled Sylvester saying before that Hildebrand wasn't massively aware of his status as a royal. Maybe part of the reason Eglantine being here really was to ensure that he carried out his duty correctly? Hortensia was from Klassenburg before she moved to the Sovereignty, Eglantine said. The two of us have spent much time together in the past, so I came to introduce her myself. I also wish to see you again, Lady Rosemond, so I could not pass up this opportunity. She then gave me a smile that contained a hint of playfulness, in notable contrast to Hortensia's more reserved expression. Still, the two women came across as very similar. Thinking back, the dormitory supervisor, Primavera, seemed pretty much the same. Maybe all women from Glastonbury were this kind and gentle? And, as an aside, Eglantine is even more beautiful now that she's gotten married and is living such a joyous life. Lady Rosamond, may I pray for a blessing in the appreciation of the serendipitous meeting ordained by the harsh judgment of Everglade, the god of life, Hortensia asked, snapping me back to reality. She had stepped forward and knelt while I was looking over at Eglantine. I stood up straight and said, "You may." "I am Hortensia. I'm looking forward to working with you." Once the light of the blessing had flown and our greetings were concluded, Hortensia stood up and turned to Solange. "This may run into Lady Rosamond's afternoon class if we do not move things along." Solange, how does one go about changing the tool's master? "The former master will grant you permission to touch Schwartz and Weiss, which will allow you to touch the face stone on their forehead and start to overwrite her mana with your own," Solange explained. It was a similar process to when Hildebrand and Hannelore had registered their mana. "Lady Rosamond, may I take ownership of the tools?" Hortensia asked me with a calm smile. Everyone in the room tensed up at once. Watching me were 2 members of the royal family and their retainers. Many more people than I had expected. I never would have thought that a handover of royal heirlooms would draw so much attention. I guess I remember someone saying that becoming the master of a royal magic tool is a great honor or something. Feeling a little awkward with so many eyes on me, I called Schwartz and Weiss over. Naturally, I took care to warn others not to touch them, then said, "Schwartz, Weiss, I grant Professor Hortensia permission to touch you both, such that she might register herself as your new master." "Hortensia, permission granted. Registering." Hortensia reached out and touched their face stones, and with that, the mana registration was complete. "But Solange, we did the same thing when I registered with them," Hildebrand said, his confusion on his face. "Is that really all you have to do to become their master?" "Oh, no, your highness. Hortensia will become their master only when the mana she has supplied then surpasses Lady Rosamond's. It may take some time, as I just finished resupplying them with mana from her face stone the other day." Solange then returned the large face stone that she had used from spring to autumn, offering me a few words of gratitude as she did so. I gave the face stone to Riarda and asked her to put it away. "What is that face stone?" Hildebrand asked. "It would be problematic if Schwartz and Weiss were to stop moving between spring and autumn. So Lady Rosamond lent me this face stone containing her mana," Solange replied, which made everyone present widen their eyes. "She gave you a face stone that large?" Hildebrand asked. "Is it really that big of a deal if the magic tools stop working when nobody's attending the academy?" Now, I was the confused one. Winter certainly was the busiest time of year for Solange, but she had work to do during the other seasons too. Plus, she needed Schwartz and Weiss around so that she wouldn't be so alone. "A library struggles to run without Schwartz and Weiss," I said, "and as I am enamored with books, it is obvious that I would use my mana to make the library more comfortable." "Is it obvious?" "But of course, I do not think that's surprising to someone would spend their mana on what is precious to them." "Lady Rosamond certainly does love books to a shocking degree," Solange said with a knowing smile. "Her efforts have saved me on many an occasion." "Oh, and that reminds me, Lady Rosamond, do take care not to supply Schwartz and Weiss to mana until the change in ownership has stabilized. If you continue to supply them, then the change may never occur no matter how much time passes." In other words, she was asking me to stop doing work for my library committee. It was a shame, but I nodded in agreement. I understood what a heavy problem I would cause otherwise. "I worry that I might still touch them by instinct, so I will avoid coming to the library as much as I can moving forward," I said. "What?" Hildebrand muttered. My retainers and everyone else for that matter were similarly blinking in surprise. Solange alone smiled and nodded. "Indeed," she said, "as you are taking 2 courses this year, I ask that you focus on your studies like any other student." "Oh my, but as it stands, I am already fully prepared," I replied, my chest puffed out. "I would expect nothing less. You are as reliable as always." Hildebrand watched her in a daze. "But will you be able to resist the urge to read books?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. "I will not, nor do I plan to," I replied. "I recently came into possession of something that I sought for so long, my own library." "What?" "Thus, I am taking inspiration from the library here in the Royal Academy and will spend this year researching magic tools so I can use in my own. There are a great many documents that I intend to reference to this end, so I will not have any shortage of reading material. I shall work my hardest to make my dream library a reality." "How wonderful," Solange said, sharing in my celebration. "You are searching for ways to make magic tools so as efficient as possible. As you told me last year, correct? Please just show me what you come up with. We may want some here as well." Even now that Hortensia was here, Solange was still expressing an interest in my redesigned magic tools. She must have picked up on my confusion as she went on to tell me more about the library. "Back when I first started serving here, there were 3 archnoble librarians and 2 men-noble librarians. Some previous generations had even more staff. There is still going to be a limit to what Hortensia and I can accomplish together, and for that reason we would very much appreciate your assistance continuing to provide us your mana, though only in a capacity that does not burden you, Lady Rosemine. We must, of course, ask you to wait until your ownership has fully transferred. It seemed that my library committee wasn't being disbanded just yet. That was a relief. Do send word once the ownership has been transferred, then I can start providing my assistance again. Oh, and incidentally, I wish to schedule the registration of new students, I said, suddenly recalling that Theodore was waiting all alone back at the dormitory. Solange took out a board and started to write something. I asked that we see that we can expect Aaron Fest first once again. Understood. I will send a letter once everything has been decided. And with that said, will we be having another Bookworm tea party this year? A Bookworm tea party, Hortensia asked. Indeed, we come together to have tea and exchange books. It is something that I very much look forward to after spending such a long time here on my own. Though with Lady Rosemine taking 2 courses and the matter of Schwartz and Weiss's ownership, we may not have an opportunity this year. Solange had evidently been looking forward to our tea parties together, and realizing this made me want to hold another one no matter what. I already have some more new books to offer, I said. We may have to hold a tea party later than we did last year, but I would certainly love for us to have another, assuming that I can finish my classes before the library becomes busy, that is. Lady Rosemine, do allow me to attend. If so, I can recommend a few books of my own, Hortensia said. My eyes lit up at the very idea. A sovereign noble from Klassenburg was bound to recommend some books that I didn't even know about. I will strive to finish my classes as soon as possible. Rosemine, I want to join too, Hildebrand said, suggesting himself with a smile. It made sense that he wanted to join us since he had attended our previous tea party, but this wasn't good. I was told to avoid interacting with the royal family and the sovereignty. What should I do? Arthur, who was standing behind the prince, received this idea with a strict frown. Eglantine looked equally troubled as she said, It is not proper for a member of the royal family to make a request of others in such a manner. Furthermore, did Lady Rosemine not collapse during last year's tea party? I am sure she received quite a scolding from Abbe Ehrenfest for passing out in the presence of royalty. Is that true, Rosemine? Hildebrand asked, looking at me anxiously. Telling him that it hadn't been a problem would ease his worries, but I wanted to keep our interactions to a minimum. Everyone had given me so many warnings already, and I still wasn't sure what I should and shouldn't say. At the same time, however, saying that Sylvester had scolded me would probably make Hildebrand less likely to attend. I didn't know how to answer. Thus, in order for Lady Rosemine to avoid another scolding, it would be best for us to invite her instead, Eglantine informed the prince. Lady Rosemine, what say we have another tea party when you are in good health? That would be delightful, Lady Eglantine. Her position as my guardian angel hadn't changed even now that she had graduated, so I eagerly accepted her help. That's Lady Eglantine for you. There was no longer any time for me to read, so I got ready to head to my afternoon classes. Schwartz and Weiss hopped over to see me off, but as I went to leave, they pointed at the door to the reading room. Milady, pray! Gramps is waiting. That reminded me they had said something similar last year, then pushed me to pray to the Miss Sonora statue on the 2nd floor. Maybe this Gramps wanted mana once per year or something? It hadn't come up since the whole thing had completely slipped my mind. Still, I was told to hold off on supplying my mana, I thought. Hortensia would need to start supplying here as their new owner. Schwartz Weiss, it has become Professor Hortensia's job to provide you with mana, so you should probably seek her assistance instead of mine henceforth. I announced I will start coming by to help out once the change in ownership is complete. I then reached out, stroked their face stones, and supplied them with a little bit of mana. Oh, whoops! Force of habit. At this rate, the ownership will never transfer over. I'll just keep things simple and stay in Professor Herscher's lab this year. Oh, I gotta get this one! But it's gonna have to wait. I'll see y'all in the next one.